Luigi's Mansion is one of those games absolutely nobody asked for. I don't think anyone in the early 2000s was clamoring for a launch title for the newest piece of Nintendo hardware to be Mario's brother catching ghosts in a haunted mansion. Even 19 years into its existence, the premise of it still doesn't sound right. It sold over 3 million units, which was very good for the Gamecube, and allowed Luigi to get more of a personality than just being Mario's sidekick. That personality being that he makes funny faces and gets scared easily. It's not the best, but it's something. For a game coming out in 2001, he's animated really well. Overall, the attention to detail on the minor things is pretty impressive. When Luigi walks, he leaves a dust trail, and the signifier for furniture not housing any items is producing a dust cloud. Your vacuum hose moves around when it could have easily stayed rigidly in place the whole time. There are bed sheets, curtains, and tablecloths that you can suck up with your vacuum, which is ironic as those items frequently get caught in the crossfire when vacuuming in real life. The mirrors actually function like mirrors and show Luigi and the opposite side of the room, which aids gameplay as well by allowing you to spot switches on the other side, or even showing you where invisible ghosts are. In addition to the fake doors in the game not showing up on the map, when you use the vacuum on them, they don't rattle like the real doors do. There's a dedicated button for calling Mario's name, as finding him is your main goal of the game. The way Luigi says the line depends on how much health you have. If you have a lot, he says it confidently, "Mario! Mario!" A medium amount of health, he gets a little scared and his tone changes, "Mario! Mario!" Low health, you can tell he's terrified. "Mario! Mario!" The main tune of the game is present throughout, either with the instrumental track in the hallways, Luigi whistling it in cleared rooms, Luigi humming it in rooms with ghosts still present, and if you listen closely, the ghosts even join in with Luigi's humming. Luigi's pitch will also be much higher when you shrink with the poison mushroom. Gameplay-wise, you can press A to call out for Mario, or if close enough to an object, bang on it to eke out treasures. The B button turns your flashlight off, which aids combat as you can draw out ghosts with darkness and turn the brights on to stun them quickly. The right trigger activates your vacuum suction, left trigger reverses the pressure and shoots air outwards, allowing you to pick up objects with R and shoot them back with L. You eventually gain the power to shoot out fire, water, or ice from your vacuum to solve puzzles or allow certain ghost types to be captured. The Y button shows the map on the Game Boy device, and the X button puts you into first-person mode to use the camera, seeing things from a different view, or learning about unique ghosts. To catch ghosts, you need to flash them with your flashlight, which reveals their heart, then suck them in, holding the control stick away from the direction they're running to. It's faster if you press the opposite direction repeatedly instead of holding the control stick the entire time. It's impressive how the game was able to have an interesting gameplay loop without traditional platforming or combat. You go from exploring dark rooms with potential dangers, catching ghosts, exploring safely in lit rooms, finding collectibles and keys, even eventually escaped boos, work out puzzles to catch unique ghosts, and finish it off with some boss fights. Navigating through the mansion is one of the best aspects to the game. Nearly every door is locked, so you will go door to door, finding keys to open up new rooms, catching ghosts, and finding gems and coins. There's something captivating about exploring a huge building like a mansion. Slowly making progress, unlocking rooms one at a time, and finally exploring it all is immensely satisfying. Rooms are dark on first visit, indicating there are ghosts that haven't been captured yet. Once you get them all, the room lights up, which is what is required to find and capture the escaped boos. The boos act as the most important collectible in the game. They try to run from Luigi, which makes sense, and in the early game can be fun. You need to catch 40 of them to access the final boss. Catching all 50 nets you a rare treasure. There are plenty of problems with the boos, but I'll get to that later on. The treasure you find all along the mansion functionally serves as a score for your playthrough, which gives you a specific rank depending on how much you collected by the end. Depending on the rank, a different size of house or mansion shows up after Luigi's adventure is over, and it's implied he ends up living in it. I'm not entirely sure. Even though it can be fun to collect, having money and gold be the main collectible in the game feels out of place. I understand needing to have things to collect that are hidden in furniture and other secret places, but it being literal cash just doesn't sit right with me for someone like Luigi. Wario maybe, but I see no reason why Luigi or Egad would be hunting for riches. It just makes me think Luigi is greedy. Thankfully, it doesn't drag down the experience as much as it could, as the rooms are small, the money is easy to collect quickly, and don't take your attention away from your main goal for too long. Even though the boos are thematically appropriate as the main collectible, the execution leaves a lot to be desired. Your Game Boy in the corner has a flashing light telling you where they are, basically hot and cold. Yellow slow flashing means you're cold, red fast flashing means you're close. This is such a terrible metric to detect where the boo is, it's almost better to interact with objects that don't have the flashing red light. Most rooms will have a few trick areas where your radar points to first. It spawns a bomb or a ball with the boo face drawn on it. Once you uncover that, the real boo laughs at you, and you're supposed to use the radar again. Worthless. With how small the rooms are, there's really no reason to use the thing. After you do find them, they have the capacity to phase through walls, traveling between rooms. That makes sense, and on paper is a great idea. In gameplay, that might mean going back and forth between rooms for a long time, sometimes even through the entire mansion to get it again. Because the mansion is laid out in a very strange way, which I think aids in exploration, it means traveling through one wall might mean you need to go through a few rooms to find them. If you lose the boo in Nana's room, it goes through the wall to the hallway, and into the wall again to the left side of the second floor. Meaning you have to go back downstairs, through some rooms, back through the courtyard, through the main first floor hallway, back upstairs, and finally into the room they went to, just for them to go back through the wall once more and start the process all over again. Unfortunately, the longer the game goes on, the worse this problem gets. Early game, the boos seem to have 100 health, but late game they have up to 300. This means you won't have a chance to capture them in one room, they're bound to travel to at least 3 or 4. In the basement and third floor does this get taken to ridiculous lengths. Third floor, their health is so inflated you'll have to travel between rooms for a long time, only for them to go through a wall again. Sometimes they're in the middle of the room waiting for you. Sometimes you need to find them in the room again, which is just such a pain. The basement is by far the worst offender. There's one room with dust piles all over, which you need to use the vacuum on to be able to cross. The idea of using the vacuum to do some real cleaning is something that should have been included more often, but the way it's currently implemented is terrible. It's only this room that has dust piles, and every time you exit and come back again, the dust piles are back. The boos in the basement are awful to capture, as they of course keep traveling through walls, so I had to go through this dusty room over and over and over again. Sometimes only to get 2 or 3 health off the boo before he went back through the wall again. This was beyond frustrating, and even though early on I had suspicions that this game was trying to pad out its length, this is what confirmed it for me. There's no reason for this rigmarole to exist other than to use up your time. Luigi's Mansion only has around 6 to 10 hours of playtime, but that number is inflated due to the many ways the game likes to waste your time. The boo catching is an example. Egad talking to you early on takes forever. Every time you catch a boo, he talks to you, and the game prompts you to save, even though the only reason the toads exist at all is to offer a save point for you. If you're doing too well catching a unique ghost in the first attempt, it will throw out a poison mushroom for no reason. This item has no place in this game. It shrinks you so you can't use your vacuum, and it interrupts your suction. It was seemingly only included to make catching unique ghosts take longer. And finally, the most blatant way the game wastes your time is by having Luigi get stunned every time a ghost appears. It might not seem so bad at first, as it's only a half second, but it adds up. Nowhere was this more clear to me than when the lightning strikes, which causes a blackout. All the lights are off, meaning ghosts are all over the mansion in every room. Walking from point A to point B is a living nightmare with how often you get stopped by a ghost. My assumption is that this was implemented only to increase the likelihood that players will take damage. Simply put, the game is very easy, and I think the developers knew that, so they threw this in to maybe catch some players out with multiple ghosts in a room. I can understand it for combat areas with multiple ghosts that you have to catch for a door to open, but it makes walking down hallways and through the mansion itself a laborious task. Since we're on the topic of the blackout, that whole sequence deserves a separate rant. You have to go to a room with phones in it. Toad calls you to tell you that the breaker needs to be reset in the basement. Throughout the game, that room had been available and unlocked, but it housed no ghosts or interactable things. I didn't understand what it was for, but I made sure to remember it. So this was my moment, I thought. This is why I couldn't use that room. Now I know where to go. Let's do it. So there I go, traveling from the 3rd floor to the basement, having to get stunned by countless ghosts, only to find out that the door is locked. Yes, the room that had been accessible the entire game is now locked. I go back up to the 3rd floor, through the mansion again, to the phone room. The phone was ringing when I left, but I chalked that up to being a room full of phones and never thought to answer another call. This time it's Egad. Even though he could have used the Game Boy that he's been using to communicate with me the entire game, he decided to call me instead because I was in the room. Are you kidding me? Unreal. The absurdity of it all, it's hard to put into words. He tells me I need to catch a new unique ghost, Uncle Grimly. He only hides in the darkest of areas, and Egad tells me I should catch him before I turn the lights on. Egad tells me that Grimly prefers rooms with mirrors. So what he means to say is that Grimly has the key to unlocking the breaker room, and I have to catch him, otherwise getting into the room that was accessible the whole game will be impossible. What do I do right away? Go to the room that has the most obvious and biggest mirror. I go to the mirror room, and can you guess what happens next? This isn't even the right room. I had to look this up because I just couldn't take wandering through this mansion with the lights off anymore. In the 3DS version of the game, Egad says that Grimly prefers rooms with clothes and a mirror. I'm at least glad that Nintendo realized how dumb of a hint that was and fixed it 17 years later. Grimly is hiding in the wardrobe room, the room with one mirror. It's not even explained why he likes mirrors, why he's in this room, or why he has the key to the previously unlocked breaker room. I must have suppressed this section from my memory when I was younger, as it caught me off guard with how bad its execution was. One aspect of the game I did remember was how poor the elemental shots are handled. Many puzzles and unique ghosts in the game require the use of fire, water, or ice. It's said many times that it's a triangle. Fire beats ice, water beats fire, ice beats water. However, you nearly always have the element you need in the same room with you. If you run out, suck up another spirit elemental that's right there to reload. This means the game can't capitalize on this rock, paper, scissors dynamic it's created. Not only is there no decision to be made the majority of the time, suck up the nearest spirit elemental and use it right there, but only being able to hold one at a time restricts the combat as well. If you were able to swap your elements at will, either normal to blow back items, fire to melt, ice to freeze, or water to spray, rooms could have been intermixed with plenty of different enemy types to vary up the gameplay a bit. It also could have included some more interesting puzzles than what is currently present. Having to freeze a green puddle of water isn't much of a puzzle when the only thing in the room is an ice elemental. The times where there could have been a good puzzle get ruined by Egad himself and his constant interruptions and unwarranted hints. For example, after getting the fire upgrade, he informs you that it can be used to light candles, which is what you need to do in that very room, and it's what you need to do with the butler in the hallway. Not only is this too much, but if you use the camera on the butler, he hints at using the fire on his candles anyway, meaning there already was a hint for the player if they needed help. When you get the ice medallion, even though there's an in-game discoverable hint in Nana's room that tells you ice should be used on the ghost in the bath, Egad tells the player that ice can be used to cool a hot bath. You could make the argument this game was made for 8-year-olds, but even they would have probably found that hint on their own, or just tried it out themselves. Nintendo must think kids are really stupid. A smaller but still annoying example is when after catching the first few boos, Egad tells Luigi to go to the washroom to splash water in his face, an attempt at a subtle prod to go in the right direction, which I didn't appreciate. I would have definitely appreciated some sort of nudging when it came to the doghouse in the yard. When going back there, you see the dog, he chases you, he damages you, water doesn't affect him, fire doesn't, using the vacuum doesn't. You can use the water to help a plant grow, but that doesn't do anything. When getting attacked by an invincible enemy, my first thought is to leave the area and come back with whatever item I don't have. Nope, instead you're supposed to run around having him chase and bark at you, then a random skeleton ghost will pop out of the dirt to attack you, then he drops a bone which distracts the dog, which leads you to vacuuming him up. There's no hint or tell at all about this, and it really doesn't seem intuitive to have a dog chase and bark at you as a solution to anything. Besides random chance, I have no idea how anyone would figure this out. Moving on to the unique ghosts, in general, I think they all suffer from being too similar. In all of them, you do a small puzzle to stun the ghost or make their heart appear, then you vacuum them up, usually taking a few tries to get the job done. Every one of them has 100 health at the start, and every one of them tries to escape in a similar fashion. The only reason I bring this up is the complete missed opportunity when it came to Madame Clairvoya. After you bring her all 5 of Mario's items, she accepts her fate and wants to return to her home in the painting. Yet she still has 100 health, she still drops a poison mushroom, and when you vacuum her up, she tries to escape. They did manage, however, to include the detail that you can't lose your suction on her. If you do the wrong inputs, you'll be fine. It would have made much more sense to me if she had no health at all and took only a moment to capture her, or her animation wasn't so similar to every other's and instead she sat there or even jumped into the vacuum herself. Instead, she just feels like every other unique ghost. The others range from okay to kinda good. There's one that requires you to shoot her with 3 yarn balls, one where you need to shoot billiard balls back at him, one where you need to suck up his food and his servants so he stops eating, and 2 musical ones, the Piano Lady and the Clockwork Soldiers. One that I liked a lot was Sir Weston. He's in a frozen room, and you need to melt the ice surrounding him. The floor being slippery is crazy to me. Making the physics of the game different only for one room makes it seem like the icy floors would be used more often, but nope, just in here and the puzzle room before it. Another one I liked is Biff Atlas, who is working out in the rec room. You need to punch the punching bag to hit him, which stuns him. Afterwards, running on the treadmill actually works. The boss ghosts are all very simple, but they offer a nice change of pace. The baby is the first one. You fight him in a crib, vacuum and throw balls at him, and dodge the horses. Second one is the graveyard purple ghost. You need to suck up smaller ghosts to shoot at the big one to stun him. It's not bad. I like the shadows along the arena that show you where the big one is. Third one is 15 boos that turn into one big boo. You vacuum it up, but it's too big, so you smack it into a spiky statue. It breaks into small boos, you use your freeze element and suck them up afterwards. This one suffers from a problem with how the elements shoot out of your vacuum. If you hold the trigger down, it's supposed to spray the ice, but sometimes it would stall because it thought I wanted to shoot the ice balls out instead. I don't remember anything in the game needing or using the ball form of the ice, so I have no idea why it's even in the game. In all of these fights, only one of them requires an elemental shot, and it's provided for you in the arena. Like I said earlier, I think a more dynamic experience was possible if you had access to all 3 of the elements at any time. The bosses could have taken advantage of it and been able to provide more interesting encounters. The final boss fight is against a mechanized Bowser with King Boo controlling him. This is one of the worst final boss fights in any game I've played. This isn't like the Blackout section where I suppressed it. I remembered this part being lackluster. There's a few main issues with the fight. To get King Boo out of Bowser, you need to suck up Bowser's spiky balls in your vacuum, then shoot them back at him when he leans over. However, the range at which you can vacuum the balls is so small, your hurt box is nearly inside the hitbox of the ball. It not working felt like the game was telling me that I can't use them, so I avoided them. Yeah, the fight goes on forever if you make that mistake. There's no indication that the balls are coming towards you or the vacuum is even affecting them. You just get right up to them and it pops on. Even knowing how close you need to get to the balls, the camera angle messes with your depth perception. I sometimes got damaged by having my angle be ever so slightly off. The other main issue of the fight is Bowser's attack patterns. When he throws the balls, he will charge at you nearly every time. You aren't able to aim with the ball in your vacuum, so you need to fire it when he lowers his head, meaning you'll most likely take damage as well from being too close. Even worse when you're up against the edge of the roof, as you can't back up any further. When Bowser gets you with his inhale attack, he double dips on damage. The inhale attack itself hurts you, and when he spits you back out, he immediately uses his fire breath attack, which hits you every time. This is caused by having an inconsistency with Luigi's invulnerability after taking damage from his attacks. Fire breath he's invulnerable for quite a while, but the inhale attack he isn't at all. They clearly made the decision to chain the two attacks together, as Bowser consistently uses the fire breath after the inhale. I don't get why Nintendo would think that's fair, but maybe it's another case of them wanting the players to take damage to make the game seem harder than it actually is. Bowser's head shoots ice balls at you while you vacuum up King Boo. After you defeat him, the game for some odd reason shows Luigi grabbing the gem with the noise effect and everything before returning back to the scene. Just seems kind of out of place. Now that we've discussed everything else, let's go back to the beginning and go through the story of the game. We start off with the intro cutscene, showing Luigi using a map to find his new mansion. After seeing the first ghost, Luigi freaks out as Egad starts using his poltergust to attempt to catch it. 3 more ghosts appear and both flee to Egad's lab. Apparently Luigi won this mansion in a contest he didn't enter. Egad implies that Luigi is dumb by saying, "So, you believe this mansion actually exists then? Strange." Kind of weird. He explains that he's been living there all his life and the mansion appeared only a few days ago, but how would Luigi know that? What about it would make him think it wasn't real? He says he saw a guy with a red hat go into the mansion without even stopping to chat. Wonder who that was. Afterwards, the game begins proper. Luigi goes through the mansion, catching ghosts. Nothing of note happens until you find the area where the boos are kept. You press a button, and all 51 boos are released into the mansion. This whole sequence is so bizarre, I can't wrap my head around it. The boos say they are sleeping, and run away when they see the Poltergust 3000, and mention Egad by name, so it's implied Egad captured them or tried to at one point. Egad says those boos released all of the ghosts from the paintings in his gallery. He says he wondered where King Boo and his gang had gone, that they were hiding in the mansion all along. The mansion appeared a few days ago, remember? What does he mean, all along? He says Luigi flushed them out, but maybe shouldn't have let every single one of them escape. This whole section leaves me very confused. So he's happy Luigi found and flushed them out, which implies that Egad had been looking for them. When? How? What was here before this mansion? I would assume nothing. Where was Egad finding these boos, just randomly in the woods? How do they know him by name and are afraid of the Poltergust 3000? That surely means Egad has been catching them successfully in the past, right? But he also mentions to Luigi that the Game Boy has a secret function for finding boos, and he says he knew it would come in handy one day, implying he's never used it? Also, if Egad didn't know where the boos had gone, why wouldn't he think they're in the newly haunted mansion? He had been living in his lab at that location his whole life. Wouldn't he think it's suspicious? My goodness, this story is so dumb. Anyway, he tells Luigi that boos are stronger in numbers, catching them is the only way to weaken their power and save Mario. Going through the mansion again, eventually you go into the courtyard and down a well to see Mario on the other side of a lion statue. You spot him trapped in a painting, which is kind of ironic because in the previous 3D Mario game he jumps into paintings all the time. Luigi finds a letter from Mario. Mario apparently dropped a bunch of his items around the mansion and you have to collect them to show Clairvoya so she can help you out. The letter is the one that bothers me the most. Luigi picked up the letter himself. The text blurb says, "I wonder what it says," but instead of reading it, he brings it to the lady to read to him. Apparently Luigi can't read. The predictions and warnings she gives you are all extremely unnecessary as well. She tells you he's trapped in a painting, which you already saw. The letter says to watch out for boos, which, I mean, obviously you know that already. One says to watch out for King Boo, which, again, you already saw him in the well. One literally tells you that boos get stronger in numbers and are afraid of the Poltergust. 1, we already know this information. 2, how would Mario know about the Poltergust 3000? You could make the case that it's Madame Clairvoya herself that is saying that, but why do we need to hear something so obvious that has already been stated? Her last reading tells you that Bowser is in the mansion. At least this one is new information. Next, after you defeat the 15 Boos boss, the blackout happens, which I've already discussed. After a while, you make it to the door that houses Mario in it, but you can't open it yet. We see King Boo here, and his conversation makes no sense either. He somehow doesn't realize this is Luigi and not Mario. Yes, he's surprised to see him, even though earlier they referenced that Luigi was here when he released them. Oh boy, this game, man, I tell ya. After this, we just continue through the mansion catching Boos and unique ghosts, unlocking doors one at a time like usual. Our penultimate ghost is an artist who has apparently been the one behind creating all the regular ghosts in the mansion. We fight off his painting creations, then capture him to get the key for the room that houses Mario. I've already discussed the final boss. Afterwards, Egad calls you, saying how proud he is of you, that you did all the work and all that. However, then he acts surprised that you found King Boo. So I'm not sure why Egad was going on about how proud he is of Luigi when he didn't even know about his accomplishment yet. He tells you to take Mario's painting back to the lab, apparently, and again, this story just can't be finished with its ridiculousness. Apparently Mario fell asleep from exhaustion when he saw Luigi arrive. Listen, it's not that this is bad, it's just so unnecessary. What is gained by having Mario fall asleep? It just confuses me more than anything else. Egad mentions that it's only been one night that all of this has happened, as if that should surprise us. The game lasts about 6 hours, so that's not that hard to believe. The mansion apparently disappears into the night, but somehow the treasure we've collected is real, and Egad has no interest in it, so he uses it to build Luigi a new home. I don't want to go too much on this, but does this imply Luigi was homeless before winning this mansion? Does he just move into whatever home the money he found can afford? Anyway, after Mario gets turned back into his human form, his head is stuck in the painting frame. Oh, that silly Mario, what a guy. Always a wacky one, that Mario. When deciding to make a video on Luigi's Mansion, I wasn't expecting to have so many negative things to say. I planned on doing a small retrospective to lead into a Luigi's Mansion 3 video. I was expecting to go on about how great the first title was before criticizing the third entry up and down. I guess I had this rose-tinted memory of the first Luigi's Mansion. Nostalgia, perhaps. I still like the game, it has plenty of merits, but I just don't see it like I once did. I don't think it's worth hanging on to the feeling of nostalgia. If you liked something when you were younger, I would say go back and experience it again. If it's not as good, you can laugh at yourself a bit. If it's as good as you remembered it, which happens more often than you think, it's a great feeling. I would put Luigi's Mansion for the Gamecube firmly in the middle of those two. I appreciate all the small details I mentioned in the beginning. I respect the decision to not have traditional combat or platforming, which is crazy for a Nintendo game. And Luigi getting his own game with a mostly non-Bowser threat is nice to pad out the Mario ethos. I didn't appreciate, however, how much time is wasted catching Boos, the missed opportunity with the elemental medallions, and the entire Blackout section. I'm happy it exists, I'm happy I played it, but it might be another decade before I go exploring through this haunted mansion again. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing or checking out some of the other videos I have on the channel. I made one on Spider-Man and one on Cuphead. I'm trying not to stick with one platform too heavily, which is why I made a video on Luigi's Mansion. So yeah, I'm hoping to have a video out on Thumper before the Luigi's Mansion 3 video, but both should happen hopefully within the next month. Yeah, so thanks for watching. I hope to see you next time.